I'm
of
jealous. I got to push further. So you were able to see a good amount of like the engine room, or like you got to see like what did you see
well,
down
so
there?
well for the most part, the first y- the first year we stayed out of we didn't go in the engine room. The skylights were closed. We peeked in the skylights. Now when we started diving it, uh when we looked in, so there's a skylight over the officers mess,
Okay.
and I've got a picture of that. You had to kind of go up under the window, but when we first saw that, the swivel chairs were still, you know, attached, and the table was attached. So there were swivel chairs around a table,
Okay.
and there was a buffet on the forward wall with the drawer partially open, and there was a knife stuck to the table. Believe it or not,
Huh.
yeah, this thing died, and but yeah, there was a knife stuck to the table, and so we got pictures of that, and that was all totally intact. The running light, stern running light, was there. Um, we we stuck our head into the engine room and shot a picture, and you know the human remains that are in there that everybody calls Whitey. We actually got a picture of them, but we didn't. I thought it was probably a asbestos pipe or something. We were up. We didn't go
You
in. We
didn't
were up.
recognize it right away as what it was, right?
When we got together to show pictures to our friends, at the end of the year, uh, at Knife River, um, down shore quite a ways. The the one friend, Lee Carlstrom, he says, I think that's a body, and I was like, I don't know, but he was right. So, but and then, like I say, we let out the location. So then, um, you know, the way we did deep diving was we did our deep diving at the end of the season
Yeah.
because the water was warmer, and we would practice. Back then you didn't have computers, so it was all on tables, and we'd practice on the Emperor, and we would, count, get our ascent rates perfect, and that was all tuning up for the deep dives because we did them. We wanted it to all be perfect, and so, anyways, Jerry Buchanan and Engelbrecht went back earlier, and they opened the skylight to the engine room, which was nice because then we could go in. And um, I I don't remember. They may have opened the back. Yeah, I don't think the back door was originally open. I'd have to look at some old
Yeah.
pictures. Um, but anyways, they kind of opened things up. So then when we went back towards the end of the second season, then we could go in the engine room and see the inside there. And yeah, actually, Randy and I dropped in the um, cruise mess and swam through the cruise mess to the galley to the officers' mess. And when we got in there, or when we got back up to the surface, um, somebody had knocked, somebody had been in there and knocked off one of the swivel chairs. And we got to the surface, and I was pissed. How could anybody be so, careless to knock over one of these chairs? And Randy said, "Well, don't be too upset because you bumped one loose too." so, so, you know, but they were, steel screws in a seat, and so it didn't take long for all of the seats to get knocked loose, and the table
Yeah.
top to fall off, which is the way it is now. And then somebody was rifling in the buffet, so there was, forks and spoons and things like that on the
Was
bottom. But
was because going from the story that I remember, 9 made it to the island. The oth- was there 13? Because 13 others, were they still on the ship, or did you see other remains, or was that the only one in the engine room you saw?
so that's all well.
Because there's 13
Yeah,
bodies that I've always wondered, like, did they wash out or are they did they go down with the Kamloops? Because then I'm like, then I would lead into asking you, what do you think caused it sinking? Like, what would your best guess be as to what sank her?
yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. As far as human remains goes, um, in the office or in the crew's mess, there are there's a pelvis, bones, and a leg, a knee, or that that's just bones.
Yeah.
It's, I think it's on the forward wall. It's kind of down in the silt. Um, One other friend of Buchanan claims there was body parts down below the grating. I've never been below the grating on the engine room. We started to go down there once, and we got part way there, and uh, I think it was Randy. I think it was Randy's lights. One of his lights went out. I mean, we dove with. Um, they used to be called Icolite super lights.
Hmm.
Um, they were NiCad batteries, and we would replace the spotlight with a um, tractor headlight, a 6-volt tractor headlight beam,
Yeah.
and so that's what. And our lights were only good for like 40 minutes or whatever. So yeah, which another story we did ended up being a night dive and learned the hard way that uh, trying to do decompression at night, you want you
Ooh,
need.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You talk
So
about
yeah,
scary.
yeah, it was yeah, just trying to maintain that reference was difficult. It's all all things that you learn, mistakes you make, but back then it was there was a kind of a community of divers that were doing this stuff,
Yeah,
and we would share our what our experiences with each other, and we a lot of times we met at Isle Royal. I mean, just we tie up to dive the Kamloops or the Emperor, the Congdon, whatever,
yeah,
and uh you know we would share experiences, and we kind of built up our best practices kind of thing, um by doing that. And so that was kind of the good thing about having the community of people that were doing this. But as far as what my theory is on what caused the Kamloops to sink, you know, really not sure. Originally, we thought because there was a crate in the stack, where the stack was, if you
yeah.
looked, the stack was off, and there was a crate in a wooden crate the uh, the upper part of the plenum, or
Okay.
below where the stack is, and that led to the theory that they lost their stack
Mm,
and couldn't maintain enough steam to keep going.
yeah,
And that was a good theory for a while until a couple fellows on scooters found the stack,
yeah.
away from the ship. Um, so, and that, that story on the, the, the note, the note in the bottle thing.
Alice is, yeah, from the river.
Yeah, we actually went to visit her grave, in, uh,
Hampton
yeah, Chris Cole and
or
I were,
Southampton.
yeah, and we went to visit her gravesite there. But um, so the first version of that I heard was from Tom Holden, who had interviewed the family, and that was the one that said that I'm the last one alive, and we're freezing and starving to death on Isle Royal. I just want mom to know our fate.
Right.
And uh, and then I got what was supposed to be the note. I got a copy of that. Somebody had found it or had a copy of it and sent me a copy of it, and it didn't have anything at all like that on it. It was it was like we're iced up. There's the fencing is on the deck, and it's we're iced up and sinking or something like that, and call somebody. I can't remember what it was, but
SOS, like send help or something. Because I
yeah,
tried to
so,
find
yeah,
at the Bruce County Museum, I think had a written out, which it sounds like what you're saying, version of
yeah.
what and I was like, because maybe so they must have gotten with how cold it was, and that was a blizzard that night, and must have got laid with ice, and maybe that overweight her. And
Could have, so there, when we were swimming along the bottom, there was what looked like a hole about at the boiler room area.
okay,
Uh, just a small one, about like that, where it had been, you know, damaged. That was what it seemed when we saw it. Now, maybe it was some kind of a pipe intake or something. I'm not positive. Um, but so so there was crew down in the engine room, which says to me they were trying to fix something. Um, now I don't know if anybody's been in the boiler room or not. I mean, we got the door open. Oh shit! We didn't get the upper door open till in the 2000s.
okay.
Um, Finally got that open, but it just was too tight for us to go down into it. Um, but it seemed like they were probably trying to fix something, and I thought, if they really did hit a shoal and just punched a small hole in the boat, um, they might have said, "Well, I think we can make it," and if they were wrong, you know, the wind might have blown them back to Kamloops Point. I mean, it's obvious they lost power. I think it's obvious they lost power
Oh yeah.
because because they, they're way down on Kamloops Point versus being on their route to Thunder Bay.
So they lose
So
power, and it's probably, is it pitch black in the ship at that point when they lose power, or
what I suppose, because if they don't have, well, I don't know. It depends how much steam it takes to run a generator
right?
versus but I think what would, if they, assuming they were taking on enough water that eventually put the fires out, they could have been sinking so slow that, that they couldn't maintain steam, but they drifted back and were pounding on the rocks at Isle Royal,
Yeah.
and then eventually, waves and taking on more water, they sank. Um, it seemed like, so there was, I always assumed, so there was another, uh, Bob Olson, one of my later dive buddies, saw what he thought was human remains in, there's a storeroom right near the cruise mess.
Yeah.
I think it's forward of the cruise mess. And he thought there was remains in there. It's hard to say. It could have just been meat or something. I didn't see it, so I don't know. But he thought, but you can imagine if you're pounding on shore and supposedly they got a lifeboat off, and some of the crew were trying to get off. I mean, there's probably part of the crew on board chucking supplies off, out of, food and whatever they can
Right.
down to the ones on shore so they can survive, and then the ship flips and goes down. That was kind of what it seemed to me.
And then people are like, you're caught off guard in that moment, and you are kind of where you are at as you're going down, right?
Right, exactly. You're feeling it. It's like the guy, the whitey that's in the staircase. You're feeling it roll more. It's getting deeper. It's going down on one of these points, and whatever, you start up to get out, and the thing rolls over. And maybe maybe the guy who was chucking the lifesavers or whatever, out to the shore, um, maybe he got caught too. I don't know. Like I say,
But it's
that
like the
was
Fitzgerald. It's like, or it could be a totally different factor that we just don't know. Like it's.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's a mystery. Um, hopefully maybe we get to do our 3D models of the Kamloops, and maybe we'll see this thing that I saw, um, back ages ago. That, like I say, it's kind of right on the corner or the edge,
Yeah.
at the turn of the bilge. It's kind of right there, but um, or they just iced up. The other thing that kind of to me lends to the theory that it was iced up is, it turned and plowed into the bottom,
Mm,
but about, geez, it's been so long, maybe 3 to 5 feet between the bow of the boat and where the mud pile is, where it's heaped,
yeah.
which maybe was how much ice was on it, as it
Mm,
plowed that forward. So that always to me said maybe that's an indication that there was ice on the bow when it sank.
yeah.
Um, we're just throwing darts at the board here. So
Unless you were a fly on the wall in that ship watching the events, like it's kind of all you can really do is kind of piece together this could have, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and the fact, having the theory that it iced up and couldn't maintain steerage or something, I suppose that's a reasonable guess too. Hard to say, I mean, it would have seemed to me if it was just icing, um, who knows?
I like your first thing where you're saying these guys were trying probably to fix something and they were trying their best to keep it afloat as they could and just anchor it to ride the storm out.
Well, yeah, uh, I think a lot of sailors in the back of their minds have made a decision, when you're out in some nasty stuff on, you know, are you gonna fight to survive and freeze to death, or are you gonna drown? And I can remember we went out on the Edna G one time, and it was just to bring a boat in, and the crew was talking back and forth, and we'd ask them, well, have you ever been involved in a rescue? And and the one guy said to he was telling the story, and he says, yeah, and I remember his name is Joe here. He didn't even put on a life jacket, and his
Mm,
reply, I ain't gonna freeze to death. And it hit me when he said that. It was like, because sailors back then, I'm sure, especially, are faced with that thought of, are we going to make it? And, you know, the
take your
truth is,
chances on the lifeboat or take your chances on the ship.
exactly. So half of them decided to take their chances on the shore, and try to make it to shore, and the others decided to stay with the ship for a while, hoping it's going to make it. So, it's,
What do you do with, yeah, that because that's 1927. Well, that's old. That's what, 98 years ago that happened. And
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's like I say, it's. I think well, even on the, was it the Steinbrenner? One of them. I think it was the first mate. Yeah, I think it was the Steinbrenner. The first mate, was on board, and he cast off the painter to the lifeboat and waved him goodbye. It wasn't. It.
or was it the
It's.
Adela Shores where the captain went down with the Adela Shores?
Well, the captain went down with the Adela Shores, but this was the first mate. They had when they dropped the. I don't. I think it's the Steinbrenner. They dropped the boat down, but they didn't. Shucks, I got a low battery signal here.
Oh, that's, yeah. We can. I could talk to you for the next 3 hours. We can finish that, and then that's perfect because then we can just kind of. I want people to know where they can find you, how they can support you. Touch one more time on 3D ships and what you got going through that. I hope we can have you again for this
Yeah,
because
sure,
this was just. I lived through all of that just now through your stories, Ken. I thank you so much.
sure.
how about we do that? How about
Yeah.
we stop it there and 3dships.org. Is that the best place where people can find you currently and what you're going through, working
Well,
on?
well, I post on Facebook too, when I'm out, when we're out, you know, boating, in the summer. It's just Ken Merryman on Facebook. But yeah, 3D Shipwrecks is our project to create a 3D model of, well, hopefully all of the shipwrecks in the Great Lakes. Um, and it's kind of to create a baseline, to document, it's for multiple purposes. And we're learning so much, in as we do these models, on details of construction and evolution of equipment, and it's just been an amazing thing. And our goal is to provide information, not necessarily to interpret it all.
Right.
Uh, and archaeologists are using this, and our hope is that you know we'll be able to, create a baseline so that we can understand how our wrecks are deteriorating and understand the the value, historical value, or prioritize, where there's great historical value in each wreck, uh, to hopefully for the next generation to maybe do something to preserve that history. Uh, so it's kind of a, you get to see what's historically significant and understand how fast it's degrading. And so you can prioritize a remedy, hopefully, so to preserve that history.
Yeah.
And it is a crowdsourced thing, so people give us models. You can support it, if you go to, it's 3dshipwrecks.org
Okay.
is the website.
I'll make sure
And
to put the link in the description when I upload this for you. Absolutely.
yeah, and we have about 260 Great Lakes wrecks from all over the Great Lakes, in the database now. And you will be able to do searches on, different features of wrecks and that when we get it all into a real database, searchable database format. But yeah, there's a donate button there if you'd like to donate, that'd be wonderful. But the models are free to use. And people can put them on their websites or whatever they want to do. So, but they are covered under Creative Commons licensing, so that kind of tells you what you can and can't do with them.
Okay.
But they're really it's pretty flexible. So, yeah, so, dive charters, and they can use it on their websites if they want, but hopefully, it'll help divers see what they're about to dive,
Right. Oh, yeah.
and just are using it now to do studies, to study different ship features and construction and that kind of thing. So,
I love what you said earlier about getting the next generation into Michigan maritime history, the Great Lakes maritime history. That's what I've tried to do with this channel is, yes, we just had the 50th of the Fitzgerald. I'm sure everybody knows that story well and good. I love it. I'm sure you love it. There are thousands of others that, you know, are I just don't want them to be forgotten to time and history, and especially each video I do and you see the faces of the people and you learn the story of what they went through, and I'm sure that's part of your passion too. Is like, "Oh man, I want people to know this person's story." Or I'm not, and from time to time I'll get family members of their great grandfather or their great uncle that will reach out and say, "Oh, that was my uncle that was, first mate or engineer on it, and thank you for not letting this story be forgotten to time and history," and I love what you're doing. I'm not a fraction of what you've accomplished in your time, or Rick's, you guys. I hope I can put my little two pennies into what you guys have built over the years.
Yeah, we had, after we found the J.H. Jones and the Manitou and the Jane Miller, I spoke up at um, um, Chuck's, the Propeller Club in the town. Shucks, can't remember the name of the town now. But anyways, the place, we packed the place, and we got a picture of all of the descendants. Most of them are from the J.H. Jones, but there was like 40 descendants, um, from, that was I think it was great 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 grandfathers down to, the young kids. And yeah, it felt really good because they all appreciated, on seeing, what happened, or seeing where their great 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 or great 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 grandfather
Absolutely.
were. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. But yeah, we do meet other descendants
Wow.
from the crew tricks. So anyways, so
Well,
I'm probably gonna power here pretty quick.
yeah,
So
that's what I was gonna say. We can call it quits there. I can't thank you enough for your time, Ken, and just thank you again for sharing with us. I hope we can have you on again here in the future. I feel like we've only just barely scratched it. I'm sure everybody is going to love uh this. I mean, where else are we going to get this information? But I thank you so very much for this, Ken, and yeah, I look forward to having you again. You and Rick have been amazing in agreeing to come on my tiny little channel to do this. So I appreciate it incredibly. And yeah, I will make sure to put the 3D ships link in the description for people to find you. So thank you again so very much, Ken.
no problem. All right. Talk to you later.